Well, it is official. The legislation for the Macquarie Point stadium precinct passing the Legislative Council 9-5 after a marathon debate in Hobart over the past few days and nights, enabling the Tassie Devils Football Club to join the AFL in 2028. Tasmania, the opening series in the show Footynomics, a business of sport, right here on Ticker, hosted by Professor Tim Harcourt. He joins us now. Good to see you, sir.
Yeah, well, new dawn has arisen, has it not, Aaron?
It's a great day for Tasmania.
Big day, I mean, historic day. I mean, Tasmania, as you know, is a foundation, Aussie rules footy state. They've wanted to be in the national competition, you know, for generations now, and finally they'll get their chance after a long campaign.
Yes, here's the image of the stadium here. I mean, it's been going back and forth, and the AFL really had a bit of a big gamble on this, didn't they? Essentially saying no team if there's no stadium. It went to an election. It's been a massive issue. The cost obviously being the main reason why. But talk to us about the process.
Yeah, well, a couple of elections in effect since they announced the team. You know, it's interesting because the AFL could have said, well, you can just have a team and play at Bellerive and Hobart and in Launceston, but in the AFL Tasmanian task force that was put together by Tasmanians, they actually saw the stadium precinct as an economic opportunity for the team and also, you know, other sports and entertainment and business in Tasmania. So it became very much the business case. And when they went to the AFL, the stadium was part of it. And you know, as the campaign went on, people tried to imply that the AFL come up with this idea to impose a stadium on Tasmania. That's actually not how the process worked, but what it meant was that to enable to cement the licence, the stadium precinct had to pass both houses of Parliament, and it went through the lower house very easily, 25-9, but the independents in the Legislative Council sort of held the cards in Tasmania, so that's why I think there's great relief that it did pass the Legislative Council.
I know you have been a massive supporter. Here's the picture of you on the set I'm sitting on right now with the first episodes of Footynomics, of course, you with the CEO of the new footy team. It's been a pretty hard slog for him as well.
It has been, yeah. Brendan Gale, I mean, he's shown great leadership. He you know, he didn't have to take on the job, but he's a proud Tasmanian, and equally the chairman, Grant O'Brien, who was head of Woolworths, he's from Penguin in northern Tasmania as well. And I think it was a passion project for both of them, Aaron. I think they felt that Tassie had been missing on the national stage for a proud footy state, and they really wanted to make it happen. And obviously they had lots of alternative employments and roles they could have done, but they chose to go back to Tasmania and get this team up. And I imagine it's been a lot harder than they expected when they first took on the role, mainly because of the controversy over having the stadium precinct at Macquarie Point that you know, has been a really hard slog through Parliament, and also getting the public mood behind it. We had an enormous rally in Hobart on Sunday in support of the stadium that sort of overshadowed the opponents who were there the previous week by a margin of 10-1. So I think it was quite clear that people really wanted the team, and people really wanted the stadium and the high performance centre for all Tasmanian sports and other purposes. So
yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the Hawks have been, you know, down in Tasmania. They've been training there, trying to make it partly their home, but obviously they're based here in Melbourne. And it seems like everyone outside of Tasmania was really pro for it. I remember one of your interviews there with the South Australian Premier involved in the program as well, and a lot of support from right around the country for the idea of Tasmania having its own team. But it really came down to that stadium as well, which, as you say, yes, expensive. Everything is expensive. We've just opened a $15 billion train tunnel in Melbourne after 8 years. But the biggest issue, of course, is about the longevity of a project like this as well. Talk to us about the pros of that stadium there, aside from being used for AFL.
Yeah, I think when we looked at stadiums all around the world in Footynomics, and we had Brad Van Wheelie, the stadium expert, on the show, and it seemed that the principle, if you're going to start a new stadium for a new team, It's got to be in a central location so people can get in there by public transport and walk to it. You need it for multiple sports and multiple events. So this Macquarie Point precinct will have 334 events a year, from concerts to business conventions, AFL, soccer, cricket, and other motorsports and other types of activities. So you really have to maximise. Sweat the asset is what Graham O'Brien said. You've got to maximise the use of it, so it's not just for one sport, and you've got to make it part of an overall infrastructure project for Tasmania. Now, the AFL's put in 360 million, not just for the stadium, but to upgrade Burnie and Penguin and other grounds around the state, so that you can improve community footy and community sport, as well as having an elite team in the AFL.
So why did the legislation take so long to get through then?
I think the Greens were against the stadium, the location. They were against spending that sort of money on a stadium precinct. Some independents felt that they wanted a team, but they didn't want a new stadium. People were worried about health and housing and education, and the advocates of the team and the stadium pointed out that if you get growth and a whole new sports industry based in Tasmania, as well as the impact on tourism, you actually have more resources to go towards services in education and health. And you'd also, as we've seen already, getting a lot of young people back to Tasmania to work for the Devils and in the various leadership institutes that are now coming up around Tasmania. So I think the view was you can invest in infrastructure and go for growth, and you'll be able to meet your other services. And that's a better way to do it than to not have the stadium, lose the team, and ultimately you're going to have to pay for those health and education and aged care services in any case. It's
such a fascinating topic, isn't it? I mean, as a professor, as the man behind the business of sport who watches it so closely, this is a unique situation. A city of Hobart, which isn't a very big city, it's become bigger, obviously, and a lot of people move to Tasmania from the mainland for a quieter life, and that obviously gets played into this as well. A lot of greenies, as you mentioned there, the home of Bob Brown, the father of the Greens. But when you have this kind of what it can do for the state, what's your takeaway? What have you learned from this entire process when it comes to the business of sport?
Yeah, I mean, I did sport for a bit of fun, a bit of a change from trade and geopolitics that you and I usually talk about, Aaron. But what I found in looking at stadiums around the world, that you can have stadiums in Dunedin and Christchurch and smaller towns. They don't have to be in big cities. Secondly, if the team is going to be based there forever like the Devils will be, that makes a big difference. They're not going to be moving around like they do in the United States, which has private ownership. And thirdly, I was fascinated by the Greens because I had to walk around Macquarie Point several times when I was in Tasmania, Aaron, and it's a sewage waste treatment plant and a car park. So you're not chopping down a forest. In fact, the new stadium will be used with, Tasmanian timber and Tasmanian environmental technology. So I didn't see it as an environmental issue, but for some reason, the Tasmanian Greens, like they've taken up the issue of Palestine and trans rights, they're taking up almost every other issue than the environment, which of course is what founder Bob Brown was all about. So the lack of environmental issues was the thing that was striking me with respect to the Greens position and some of the other independents.
And why did you appear last week in the Legislative Council?
Well, the Tasmanian Football Club wanted an economist to put the economic views on having the team and having the stadium precinct. A number of economists were against it, and they've been quite public about it. And they really needed an economist on their side. So I appeared before the Legislative Council committee. A number of the independents, Beck Thomas, for instance, Tanya Rattray, were very, very constructive. I mean, they clearly had concerns about governance and community sport and the economic fiscal sustainability of the project, and they asked really good questions. The Greens didn't appear when I was there, and they'd given early in the day Cricket Tasmania a really hard time because Cricket Tasmania had decided to support the stadium after they did their own research around the world.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. A big day, a lot of excitement, and plenty more to come from you in 2026. Tim Harcourt, appreciate your time. Talk soon.
Thanks very much, Aaron. Really appreciate you supporting Footynomics on Ticker.